What's up, brother? Special teams, special plays, special players. That's what UConn is. They are national champions. The Masters is coming up. Some special players there. Going to be some special shots. And you know what? We're going to call this the winners episode of the Three Guys Talking About podcast because we're past keeping episodes here. And that's also why Ethan is not on the podcast because he's never won anything. So, we only wanted to reserve this special episode for winners only, someone who knows something about winning championships. And Grant,
And just look at Ethan's bracket this year. What does he know?
Oh man, he was out the first week.
The first night the brother was out.
I think 5 games in.
Yeah, 5 games in. I didn't fare as well compared to years past, but hey, 2-time champ.
Yep.
Stuff happens. And I think you got me. So congratulations, sir.
I did. And in our bracket pool, I will announce, I will give a special shout out to Aiden Ramsey, who won our
Aiden.
bracket pool. Yeah. Yes, Aiden Ramsey. He is a cross country and track and field runner for the Drake Bulldogs, I believe it looks like, according to his Instagram. And thank you, Aiden, for reaching out, because when I looked the night before that game started, I was like, okay, I knew the guy that was in the lead, and it came down to points, and Aiden's points ended up winning out. And I was like, oh, poor guy. And then I was like, great. Now how am I going to figure out who won this and how do I get him the gift card? So luckily that Tuesday, I was able to. He reached out to on our Instagram page and was able to. We were able to get everything set up and squared away. So I sent him that last night. So thank you for joining it. Hopefully, Aiden, you join again next year. Word gets out that we're doing giveaways. The more we do, who knows? Maybe that leads us up to more winners. Maybe we do open this up for a chance to win money and everybody pays in. But we got a long ways to go before next year. We're still in last year. UConn won it all. Another dominating performance in the NCAA tournament. 12 straight games. None of them hit 3 zeros with it within single digits. Just dominating. It was probably one of the more impressive runs. We've in our group chat, we've talked about, some of the more impressive runs, and I don't know if they're going to get much more impressive than these last 2 years. Because, I mean, when you look at, like, some of the dominating runs throughout the years, Grant, you look at Carolina in 2009, Kentucky in 2012, who John Calipari is not there. We're going to talk about that later on. But I'm trying to think now, who else?
Even like I
Villanova
think Kansas
of 18.
Villanova in 18, they had a very dominant run.
And it's and going back, it's still, I'm sure there's some other ones that we're gonna miss, but the sheer where it was, it was about the first like 12 minutes or so. It was kind of, it felt like almost like watching an NDSU football game when we were in college, watching Michigan play these last couple of years, where it was feel it out, something clicks, and then all of a sudden they start making that run right around halftime, and then once they come out of that break, it's guns a-blazing. They're going full stop, and before you know it, they're already down 20.
Yeah. Yeah, ultimately they kind of feel you out. They see what you're going to do. UConn lets their opponent take their best shot right away, and then they're going to adjust from that, and they just suffocate you. Like, Dylan, I think you said this in our group chat 2 months ago. You were like, this UConn team is unbelievable. They just suffocate you. Like there's no one in this country who can really compete with them. And I mean, like Dan Hurley said, they make a hard tournament look easy. Like you shouldn't go on a 30-0 run in the Elite Eight. You shouldn't hold a team in the national title game to 23 points outside of the Wooden Award player. Like you take away Zach Edey, none of those players on Purdue belonged on the basketball court that night.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was their strategy the whole time, where it was they basically knew that Edey, you can let him score, and it's a strategy you often, and that's exactly kind of what they did when they with Alabama is, in that first half where it was kind of feel it out, and then they took Alabama's best punch. Alabama was 7 of 10 from 3 in the first half, and they were still down by
losing.
two possessions. Like it was, and then in the second half they just got out on the guards and basically said, "You told Alabama, go ahead, take the paint, take the two. Your 3-point shots are not going to beat us." And that was the same thing that happened in the championship game with UConn's guards, is that they were on them and jumped in them between Heidi and Lawyer. They weren't able to do anything because UConn's guards got so far out on them where they didn't, even the threes that they had, it was contested. They only made the 1 3, and they just did a good job of taking it away to where they weren't. Purdue, their guards came a long way from last year, and without that development that they had, they don't make it to the NCAA tournament. That was why they lost in the first round to Farley Dickinson last year, is because the guards were inexperienced. They've improved, but they weren't ready for the intense, the ferociousness that UConn's guards play with. And the other part of it too is that Edey, UConn did a good job of kind of rotating guys where they would just put a body on Edey all the time. And for the first time in his 4 years, where he looked tired, because they talked about it on the broadcast. He doesn't sub out, and you could tell him jogging slowly up the court, and then him having to take I think he only sat for like a minute, but you never saw that out of Zach Edey and UConn. And watching it in the paint, it was just it was Klingon. It was, is it Sampson? Is that the black guy that can jump out of the gym? I can't think of his name. But where they would just have a body on him, get physical with him. And a lot of the shots that he would normally make, especially in the first half, especially when the game was kind of teetering in UConn's favor, and shots that when they go into Edey, he would normally make, he missed them because he just didn't have that energy.
Mm-hmm. It kind of reminded you, Dylan, of like in college football during the bowl season, when a team from, well, anywhere in the Big Ten minus Michigan, Ohio State, when they go up against an SEC school. One team is just so much bigger, faster, and stronger, and the other team, fundamentally, they're gonna play extremely well, and they're not usually gonna beat themselves. They're gonna make the other team beat them, but they can't match up athletically, and it becomes too much. And that's what this game reminded me on Monday. It's just the elite athletes that this UConn team had, and also just the sheer size. They're an NBA team out there. They have 3 7-footers, or 3 guys who are 6'10" and over. When you can just rotate like that, it's an unmatched skill in basketball. And people want to say the big man is dying. Well, no, I think it's coming back. The analytic run, what Steph Curry has done for the NBA is incredible. But when you have an elite big man in this game, you cannot beat him. And I think now with UConn winning back-to-back titles here, and with the way they play, I'm kind of excited, and I hope the big man does come back, because it's the way basketball should be played.
And and you can't beat a 15-foot mid-range jumper. There's something about that
oh my
that
God,
also needs to make a comeback.
like dude, even like different Final Four here. But, for the women's Final Four, watching that Iowa game on Friday, when Kate Martin hit those two mid-rangers, the one-footed fadeaway like you saw Dirk make all around his career when Dwayne Wade was making that, I looked over to Alec and I said, this is basketball. This is exciting. Like, she's backing an opponent down, turn around, 1-foot fadeaway, mid-range jump shot. Who doesn't love that? That is basketball.
And I would also argue with that game too is Caitlin Clark's lack of confidence shooting the mid-range is probably what cost them and keeping them in it. I don't think they would have beat South Carolina. I mean, when you have four girls on your team that are over like 6'3", it's you don't even have to worry about making the shot because you got 6'5", 6'7" right there. That's just going to get the rebound.
6'2" that are going to get the rebound. Yeah. But dude, I'm all in with you. The basketball world, like the dude from Oakland, we love him because he beat Kentucky, and seeing Kentucky lose is awesome. But when you're only taking 3-point shots on the year, I can't get behind that. I want a solid 15-foot, like you said, 15 to 17-foot mid-range jumper. Give me the 2 points, but just to get your confidence going, make you feel good, because then teams truly have to guard the whole court. And it reminds me of 2015 Twitter, back when Twitter was at its prime with Aaron Rodgers. Whenever he was talking NBA basketball, he was always used the hashtag mid-range. And whenever I see people utilizing the mid-range shot, I get so excited. And we need to bring it back. Make the mid-range shot great again, Dylan.
That's right.
It's the 9-to-5 steel worker in Northeast Ohio who wants to go to work, come home, drink a bunch of beers, and watch football on the weekend. They're the ones who make America. He's working the assembly line in Detroit building
cars. And he had a hell of a mid-range jumper back in high school, too.
Yes.
Shot about 85% from the free throw line. Why do you think we don't have the automatic free throw shooters that we used to? Is because the mid-range game has gone away.
It's gone away. And that's when you get all your foul shots, when you're getting hit on the elbow, when you're on the elbow. The mid-range game, like I said, he's the dairy farmer from Wisconsin. He's the automobile worker in Michigan. He's the hog farmer in Iowa. It's the backbone of this country, and it's the backbone of basketball. The big man in the mid-range game, they're coming back, and I'm getting excited for the future of basketball. Because that's how it's supposed to be played.
Well, and since we're on the topic, I mean, when the Warriors were on their run, who led the NBA in mid-range efficiency? The Golden State Warriors.
Warriors.
They have the tremendous free three-point shooters, but they still utilize the mid-range game as much as anybody. And there's
Sean Livingston. What a beautiful mid-range jumper that man had.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's a shame his knees went to shit.
They cost him an all-star career. I think if he would have stayed healthy, I think he definitely would have been an all-star, because perennial all-star player.
Yeah, people forget he was supposed to be the guy, but when he got to Golden State, this was a comeback train.
But,
that's right.
So, UConn wins it all. We're gonna shift gears here, Grant. You mentioned you enjoy Kentucky losing. You're not a Kentucky fan. Now, I've never had anything against Kentucky. I've never really had anything against Cal except for the 2014 Elite Eight game, which we're not gonna have to bring up a whole lot of that.
Was that a Harrison brother?
That was a Harrison brother, and I'm not even mad about the Harrison brother because he went and did it against Wisconsin the next game in the Final Four.
He did.
The one was that 00 guy whose name escapes me. That guy still lives in my nightmares. Who didn't play all year at all, like hardly played. But Willie Cauley-Stein gets hurt, and he had to come off the bench. And all of a sudden, like, who is this guy? Where did he come from? Because he didn't play all year, and then he goes and has like 5 or 6 putback dunks against Michigan, and that eventually ends up being the difference. And probably I'm you can call me a homer on this. I don't care, but
you think Michigan wins the title
I still fully believe Michigan would have won the title that year. Yes, because I think they would have beaten
Interesting.
Wisconsin in the Final Four.
And that UConn team was not good.
No, it was, and I mean, John Beeline or Kevin Ollie, who you taking?
I'm taking John Beeline.
Yeah, exactly. And I would argue too in that game. I mean, Shabazz Napier was the best player on the court when they played Kentucky. I think Michigan would have had. They had Glenn Robinson, they had Nick Stauskas, they had Derek Walton, Zach Irvin, Jordan Morgan. I mean, that team was stacked. A tremendous college team. And I think they would have been able to neutralize Shabazz a lot better than what Kentucky did. It felt like Kentucky was just, well, I mean, it was kind of one of those Cal staples is in those big games that they just would lay an egg. And, you know, this was, Cal said early, and I think I think his introductory press conference is just finished right before we started recording here. But he talked about whenever he had a book come out, he talked about how this is a job, Kentucky is a job that really you can only stay here for about 10 years before the expectations get too high. And, you know, when the news came out, we can't not talk about it. So I've immersed myself, Grant, in Kentucky sports radio, Matt Jones.
Oh my gosh.
And well, because you know what, I feel like that we need to, I kind of need to get their perspectives, because I've actually ran into a few when I've been on vacation and stuff, talked with people, and I've talked with they're from Kentucky, and I've asked, and this was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and they loved Cal. They thought he was awesome. They loved the way he was doing, and this was a couple years off a national championship, so it was still pretty fresh, but. After listening to the Kentucky sports radio, it sounded like Cal basically isolated himself from everybody. It sounded like he didn't have a relationship with the president. He didn't have a very good relationship. His relationship with the athletic director was non-existent. I don't know if you saw the video of that him and the AD did after they lost to Oakland, where it looked like, yeah, there's no chemistry between these two. It was like they were.
It looked forced.
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of how it seemed like it was. And while listening to it, like a lot of like the big donors, he didn't have relationships like with the big time donors or like kind of those the really loyal Kentucky fans that were donors for a long time. He didn't really have any connection with them anymore. A lot of the connections that Cal had as far as donors were Calipari guys, and by the end of this, I got to stop hitting that. But by the end of it, it felt more like he was. It felt like it was more of a Calipari program more than than Kentucky, and he they talked about how Mark Stoops, when they have a big win, whoever that did they beat Florida this year? They beat them last year.
They've beaten Florida a couple times in these last couple of years.
So, but like they talked about how like he didn't have a relationship with Mark Stoops. He didn't have a relationship with really any of the other coaches from like when he first got there. A lot of it was he was going and he was at Kentucky football games. He was out visiting. He kind of had an open door where like if other programs were hosting recruits, he would let those programs come in, watch practice. He would talk to them, talk about how great of a school Kentucky is, have that pitch and kind of develop that connection, that relationship, that culture of a positive culture of Kentucky sports where it sounds like him and Mark Stoops despised each other. But back to the, Mark Stoops with, when they would have big wins, they would, the Kentucky sports radio guys talked about how he would invite some of those big donors, the people that have been willing to invest in the program. He would have them over at his house for dinner, have a cookout, is like saying thank you and like how much they appreciate the support. Cal wasn't doing that. And then he it also sounded as if that, he was already done, checked out in February, that he was reaching out to other programs. It was reported that he had interest in the Ohio State job, and it just never quite worked out as far as the timing goes. And the other part of it too with Cal is, no, I don't think anybody would ever consider him as much of an X's and O's guy as far as really getting the intricacies of basketball, which is fine. I mean, part of being a head coach is you're more so managing people and dealing with a lot of getting people set up in the right spots and utilizing people's strengths to the best of their ability. And he had 3 longtime assistants that left in Kenny Payne, John Robick, and Orlando Antigua, and he never replaced them at all with anybody that was really good. I believe Antigua came back this year, but he was gone for 3 or 4 years. Kenny Payne went and took the Louisville job, and that was his right-hand man. He was kind of the guy that had the operation going. But it was it sounded like it was both of them, I think, were agreed it was done. And I mean, they saved $34 million. Cal saved him $34 million by not firing him.
Fire him.
So I mean, Kentucky, I think, is going to be fine. I think that is a program. That's one of the few programs when you look at like some of the top blue bloods. Kentucky has 8 national titles, and they've won it with, I believe, 4 or 5 different coaches. So that program, and I think Kentucky, they're going to get back to being Kentucky, where it wasn't it was Cal, that salesman in him of, yeah, we're putting guys in the NBA. This is what we're going to be. Like my favorite night isn't cutting down the nets. It's being there on draft night for the guys and seeing them make all that money. Well, it was good because they were winning for a while he had those assistants, but now it was more so like, well, yeah, cool, you got him in, but we're one and done. And then it was always that same song. Well, they lose a couple of games early in the year. Well, we're built for March. And then when they lose early in March, well, we had a young team. We're going to regroup and be better next year. It was just that repetitive cycle. And I think him going to Arkansas, I think that is a place where you can get away with being the one and dones because it's not that obsessive, like where they're going to expect the national title every single year. I think what more so at Arkansas is they're going to be happy. And they've had under Eric Musselman, they were in the 2 of 3 years. They were in the Elite 8. So, I mean, it's not like Arkansas is some just abysmal program. They're a good program. They were a really good program back in the 90s, the 40 Minutes of Hell, with whoever's coached his name that's escaping me. But he's not going to have that expectation at Kentucky that's going to be you have to win a national title every year or at least be playing for a spot in the Final Four. And it seems like he's in a good spot, which who would have thought Arkansas, a program that has all sorts of money between the Tyson chicken family, which is why Cal is at Arkansas, and then also the Walton family for Walmart. And then the Clintons are there. I think they're stoners to the school. So, and it sounds like too that by the way Cal left, his legacy, it's going to be a lot easier for him whenever he decides to hang up the whistle and retire from coaching, that he will be able to, whenever it's time for him to have his, that's crazy to think that it's already like 8 more years and it'll be 20 years since Kentucky won their last national title, or the fact that he was at Kentucky for 15 years. You don't even think about that because he was there. His first year was in 10, but it sounds like, if he were to stay another year, they talked to a guy that was pretty in with the program and said that he probably, if he would have come back next year, they would have been sub 500 and he would have been fired and it would have been a disgrace. Here, it kind of gives him a chance save his legacy, and where they both can look back and be happy and say that, yeah, it was a fun run. It was a fun run.
Dylan, it's interesting you brought up the relationship between Cal and Mark Stoops, and I randomly remembered this when you were mentioning that, but it brought me back to a college football game in 2017. Now, hear me out. North Carolina was playing NC State, and the game was in Chapel Hill, and at the time they brought Roy Williams up to the booth to talk, during the game, on a Friday afternoon after Thanksgiving, and he talked about the importance of the relationship between him and Larry Fedora at the time, who was the head coach, and the year before, how North Carolina, they lost in that title game to Villanova. That we talked about the crazy ending. It was like I talked about, as one of my favorite March Madness moments, and how that strong relationship that Roy and Larry had together was important because it helped Roy, rebound and get ready for the next year when North Carolina was able to win a national title game. And it gets you thinking, like, especially in the Southeast, the two coaches in your athletic department who have to get along is your basketball coach and your football coach, because if you don't, that could divide an athletic department. It could divide an AD when you're fighting over, assistant coaches' wages, your wages. In today's world of NIL money and such like that, are they favoring this guy? Are they taking this guy's side? So if you can have your football coach and your basketball coach be friends and work together, that's a great thing for your university. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't Mark Stoops sign a nice extension with Kentucky this last year or the year before? So he's going to be around a long time. And then with kind of the way Cal's
it's a perfect spot for him, even despite him almost leaving for A&M. I mean, I think he's in a perfect spot for where he is. I mean, it's low. I don't want to say it's a low pressure, but I mean, the expectations aren't to win 10, 11 games every year. I think the expectation every 3-4 years is you to try to win 10, 11 games. And when you play Georgia that first week in November, put yourself in a position to where you have an opportunity to win that game and maybe one of the years get over the hump.
Yeah. And the big thing with Kentucky on your average year, if you can go 8-4 and win a Citrus Bowl, or that might even be too much, or win a Music City Bowl and beat Florida, if you go 8-4,
they haven't done before Stoops got there. They didn't do it since like
20
the
80s. 40 years in a row. And now we're like, well, Florida beat Kentucky. That's saying something.
And now it's,
yeah, he's flipped that program around now. So at Kentucky, on an average year, if you can go 8-4, if you can beat Florida, and you can win your bowl game, you get 9 wins, and we're in a betting world. You cover against Georgia. It's a good year. And then to your point, that once every 3 to 4 years, when you have that good recruiting class and you can build your program up, kind of like Northwestern in an aspect in the Big Ten here, where it's like, okay, you know what? We have a good base. These 10 to 12 players from these last 2 classes, we really believe they're going to hold the culture of this program. And we can go 10-2, finish second in the SEC East. It's a great year. It's a great job, and he's going to get an extension. And in return, that's kind of what Cal's going into now at Arkansas, because you mentioned Musselman had them and 2 Elite Eights, back-to-back years, and then they beat Kansas in the spring of 23 to kind of help that run there. If he wins a national title, he will be a god, and he could run for governor someday in Arkansas. But if he can bring good recruits in, and between those 2 families that you mentioned, with how many billions of dollars they have to offer, those 3 families, you can bring good talent in, you can get publicity to the university, and if you make an Elite 8 or 2, it'll be a successful run there for him. So it kind of softens his fall, where, to your point exactly, he doesn't need to win a championship and get to the Final Four, kind of like almost where Nate Oates is at now. Like, no one's expecting Alabama to win a national championship in basketball. But if you can be the number 1 overall seed, and maybe make it to a Final Four or two, you're going to have a job for the rest of your career.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand that how difficult that is to win. It's hard to win one game in the NCAA tournament. Winning four just to get to the Final Four and then winning six, it gets skewed now because of the way UConn did it, but it's still if people have asked me what reasonable expectations for Michigan basketball is, and I'm fairly realistic. Like, I understand that and it's a football school. It's back to being a football school. But there's no reason that Michigan should finish in the top 5 in the Big Ten every year, and they should be playing. They should at least win the first round game, and they should be playing in the second weekend in the tournament. I think that's the expectation every year, and then about every 3-4 years be playing in the Final Four.
Well, I agree, especially dealing with the amount of talent just in the Big Ten. Like in the Big Ten region, you have Detroit in your home state. You can go down to Chicago, and then also the whole state of Indiana. And, hell, even the high school talent here in Minnesota. There's a lot of talent across this Big Ten conference, and there's no reason a school like Michigan, who has money for it and who has tradition, can't be there if they have the right coach in there who can develop his players. So I agree with you 100%.
And, the Big Ten hasn't had a national champion since 2001. And, Michigan ended the Big Ten's drought in college football. They're about to end it in hockey. Michigan, that is what Michigan does, is they go and win championships. That's what we do as Michigan men. We pull the Big Ten out of the dumpster and lift them up and get them holding up trophies because we're Michigan, and that's what we do.
Well, and Dylan, I have one question to ask that. Who's got it better than you?
You know what, Grant? I am so glad you asked that shirt because the answer is on the back.
Nobody.
That's right. But, yeah, so I think that wraps up. And I guess to go back to your top, the Roy Williams, Larry Fedora conversation is I remember, I don't know, Grant, if you remember the top 5 reasons you can't blame show that ESPN did when we were like kids, and it had a bunch of different things.
Yeah,
they had one about, I think it was in the one where about paying why you can't blame the NCAA for not paying college athletes. And Gene Cady talked about, who the former longtime Purdue coach talked about, is like if you're a basketball coach or a coach of any program at a university, it is vital. If you want to have any lick of success in your sports, you want to have a good football program because that's the one that's going to make the most money. It has the most seats. It sells the most tickets. If that's a good program, that's going to funnel and channel the success of other programs throughout the university. So, that's part of a disconnect. And who knows, maybe now that Cal is down in Arkansas, maybe him and who is their coach? Yeah, Sam Pittman. Maybe now that it's a fresh start, maybe he's able to get back to that and kind of realize, look at where he went wrong and get some right assistance, and that it's going to be a successful run. We're going to find out here.
Also, Sam Pittman seems like a hard guy to dislike.
Yes. Yeah. I bet you that's one of the first things that, since he found out Cal, I bet you he probably reached out to John and said, "Hey, come over to my house and have a cold beer with me."
He's probably going to have a cold beer. I bet you they're going to have a couple of racks of ribs.
Oh, yeah. And then they're going to call the Hogs. They're going to post a video at Sam Pittman's house outside. And they're going to something that I bet you guys, our listeners, did not have on their bingo card of me calling the Hogs.
Calling the Hogs today.
Which kind of, or the first Arkansas home game of the year. I think Cal has to be the one that's calling the Hogs.
100%, dude. He's got to be
So,
the honorary. He's got to be the honorary captain. He's going to be calling the Hogs. And call me crazy, dude. When you hear that, like when they're getting ready to play LSU or when they're getting ready to play Alabama, it is electric when they
oh,
call those
absolutely.
when they call those Hogs there, man. Oh, God, it's awesome.
But that wraps up our Cal to Arkansas talk. You know, we said this is a winners excellence only episode, and we're gonna go over the Masters starts today as you're listening to this, and you know I played it on EA on the EA Sports PGA Tour. Course kicked my ass. I didn't even make the cut. Absolutely destroyed me, dude. I think I started the round off with like two pars, and then I
Feeling
I
good about yourself?
bogeyed I bogeyed I bogeyed the next 5, double bogeyed 8, bogeyed
Ooh.
9.
Ooh.
Miraculously did not break my controller, but
Nice.
close. So,
Dylan, that reminds me of the question. Did you see at Kepka's? Did I send this to you? Kepka's press conference today. Reporter goes, and seeing the conditions of the course and how it's playing out there, looks like we're gonna have nice weather in Georgia this weekend. Do you think shooting a 59 is obtainable? And Kepka looks at the guy and he goes, "Have you played this course before?" "No, I haven't." "I can tell by your question."
that is I did see that, and
and I love
Brooksy
Kepka.
always gives us some
Brooksy.
great quotes.
He's a
I do.
I'd start stroking guys.
I exactly. And
But
you know what? If
also,
there's a lot of people that don't like him, and if you do not like Brooks Koepka, you're a loser. I'm just gonna say it.
I love me some Brooks Koepka. He's got a great tan. He's got an excellent farmer's tan or a golf tan. Wow, watching him on the net on full swing, it's like, Brooksy, you live in South Florida. Take your shirt off every once in a while, there, brother. You have a pool in your house. Come on.
Smoking hot wife.
Smoking hot wife, but also the fact that he's a Florida man. That's why we love him even more.
Yep, Florida State Seminole. And this has been the year of repeat champions. The Chiefs repeated as champions. UConn has repeated as champions in college basketball. Will we see a repeat champion in John Rahm here at the Masters? The first trivia question here, Grant. Do you know the last time somebody went back to back and won to win the Masters?
I don't think Tiger ever did it.
Incorrect. It was Tiger in 01 and 02.
It was Tiger. Okay.
It's been 23 years since, or 22.
22. I was going to say that the Chiefs broke the 20-year streak of the Patriots.
Yep. And then it was like 18. Well, it would have been like 17.
Well,
for college basketball.
06 and 07. So.
Yep.
Yeah, what, 18 and 17 years, something like that?
Yeah.
16 and 17 years.
And then before that, it was 91-92 when Duke did it.
Yeah, Dookie, right? Didn't Arkansas have an opportunity, but Duke beat them? Or was it UNLV?
UNLV did. It was UNLV.
That's right. It was UNLV. Yep. That's right.
Because Arkansas won it 2 years after Duke repeated, because it was Duke, Carolina. It was a Fab 5 years. And then I think it was Arkansas.
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't Duke lose to Arkansas in the title game in 94?
That might be it. Yeah,
I thought they did.
I think that sounds right.
I'm getting distracted here, but honestly, dude, if I was a betting man, you stole my piece right in front of me. It's the year of the back-to-back champions. I think I would have to go with John Rahm. I only say that because now we're seeing a trend, and it's people going back-to-back. And it'd be kind of cool to see that. I think in our lifetime, because just with how challenging this golf course is and how these players talk about how grueling and demanding it is. And, having to walk 18 holes, 4 straight days, 72 holes on this weekend. It's an amazing feat that people can even finish this tournament. And I think it would be cool to see if John pull it off. Dream scenario for golf, Dylan, on Sunday afternoon. This is just me. I think you have him. I don't know if Tiger can physically handle it. Like if his body is going to let him.
I think he makes the cut because he's been there so often. I think, like you said, his body's going to wear down, and
I think
probably he'll have to
down.
withdraw again. But he did give up sex, so I think that might be bad for him because when you look at him when it was his peak,
yes.
he was a rabbit.
Yeah, I mean he was fornicating left and right. So I think for golf's sake, you know what they would love Sunday to come down to, Sunday afternoon? If you could have Scheffler and Rahm, and we'll throw in Rory, because he hasn't won the Masters yet.
Potentially might have to leave early, Scheffler, because his wife, they're expecting their first child, and she's technically not due for a couple more weeks, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that he would have to leave.
Wouldn't that be something if him and Rahm are going down, they just get done with a par 3 on 16, they're heading to 17, they're both at 4 under, and Scheffler gets a call from his wife, Scotty, it's happening.
Well, I wonder how that works, because they don't allow phones at Augusta at all. So, I wonder if they give his somebody that's following him some a way to communicate. There has to be some type of way for something like that.
His wife would call.
He's got a pager. That's what he's got.
He's got a pager. He's got an old school pager. Yep. Jumbo 54 or Jim Bob 54, and he's like, "Oh, my wife's in labor. I gotta go." But wouldn't you just love to see a combination of let's say those three going down the stretch, trying to win the Masters? Because wouldn't CBS just love those ratings?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You said what? Koepka, Rahm, and Scheffler?
I'll say Rory.
Okay. Well, and Rory, he's looking to complete the Masters Grand Slam. And that would be his
Grand Slam.
I think that'd be his first one, and almost.
It would. Oh,
it'd be his first major. 16 or 17.
16 or 17. Yeah, because he's won the other ones multiple times, but he has just not gotten the Masters. So that would be, like you said, finishing that Grand Slam of major tournaments. And I think people don't want to see Brooksy in there just because of the whole live thing, but I don't care. I want to see the best golfers in the world. So if you could see a combination of those four going after it, we'll even throw in you're forgetting about Dustin Johnson and everyone else, but that's what I want to see. I want to see.
Homa.
Mm-hmm. I want to see.
We need some homosexuals.
It's 2024. We got to be inclusive, even at Augusta National. Apparently, Augusta National, they're still doing a little bit on the old school train of things, where sometimes I don't know if they allow women in certain buildings down there.
There might.
I'm just saying. I heard Julian Edelman talking about how he went down there with Robert Kraft one day, and he was wearing a pair of Nikes, his RKKs, and they were like, "Hey, Rob, you're gonna have to take those off. We have a strict dress code around here." And Julian said there were some signs that maybe women aren't allowed in certain buildings or something like that. So I'm just saying.
All right. Well, then, Grant, if you gun to your head, who's putting on a green jacket on Sunday?
Like I said, it's the year of the back-to-back champion. So give me John Rahm.
All right.
It's gonna a JJ Watt text message to Zach Ertz is gonna be the thing, just like last year. And I think like I said, I have no reason besides it's the year of back-to-back champions.
Okay.
So give me Rahm.
Sticking with the trend of back-to-back. I'm gonna go with our guy Brooksy. I'm going with Brooks. I think he's been in the hunt the last couple of years. I think
Mm-hmm.
he finally gets over that hump and is able to finish that final Sunday out. And I like Brooksy to put on the green jacket.
I like it. And it's an
So
excuse to see his wife afterwards.
yeah, exactly. There we go. So now that wraps up Masters talk. That wraps up the NCAA tournament. That wraps up Cal to college to Arkansas. You were at Chris Stapleton over the weekend. How was that?
It was awesome. It was absolutely electric. It was right there with what Eric Church did when we were there 2 years ago at US Bank Stadium. Different style of concert though. Eric, he's got his band. He's walking all around up on stage. Not so much he's dancing, but he's going to get you fired up. He's going to get you into it. Chris, he's got his awesome band. Not as good of a light show as Eric, but I tell you what, that man's going to stand in his spot. He's going to get his guitar and he's going to sing. And what he sounds like on his album when you're listening to Spotify is what I heard Saturday night. His voice is just absolutely amazing. And I don't know if I texted you and Ethan this, Dylan, but the next time he's anywhere near where you're at, you need to go.
That you did text us that.
Whether
yes.
it's a trip to US Bank Stadium, or if you want to go west with your boys, and if he's playing at Invesco, there in Denver, hell, make a trip to Grand Forks. I don't if he's going to be at the Alaris Center, or you know what? Maybe he goes.
I don't know if that's enough to get me into that godforsaken town.
Okay, so then if his next tour when he goes to the Fargo Dome,
okay,
go.
Can do that.
Go. You will not be disappointed. And it's funny, as he was getting ready to come on, I looked over at Alec and I told him, I said, he's going to come out right away and he's going to come out with a banger and he's going to get this crowd just hyped. I said, he's coming out and he's playing White Horse. He goes, you're out of your mind. There's no way he's playing that song right away. You hear the guitar intro and he plays White Horse. So he set the tone for the first song that he was not messing around tonight. And it was kind of funny. I called my shot a couple other times too. I was like, he just played a couple fast songs. I was like, Alec, he's going to slow down here. I think he's going to play Cold. And then he played Cold. And then for my last song of the night, he still hadn't performed Tennessee Whiskey or Broken Halos. And I told him, I said, it's like, he's going to end on Tennessee Whiskey. Give me Broken Halos. And he played that. So I was 3 for 3 for calling my shot. I was feeling pretty confident. I was feeling pretty cocky after that.
Well, you went 3 for 3 on that. Can you go 1 for 1 on this question? Do you know who the original singer of Tennessee Whiskey is?
Oh, the original singer.
Uh-huh. If you get this, you better go to the casino and start playing something because you're on a heater.
Kenny Rogers?
It was not Kenny Rogers.
Okay.
It was not. It was one David Allen Coe.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I did not know that.
Yep, which I don't know if you're familiar with David Allen Coe, but he is awesome.
I know a couple of his songs.
Okay, but you didn't know that one.
No, I did not.
Which I didn't really know that either until like after I went to Nashville and I really got immersed in that era, the Waylon Jennings, Willie, Merle Haggard, that era of country music. But my uncle is a huge David Allen Coe fan, and him and my aunt, like I think it was like 10 or 15 years ago, he was playing at one of the casinos south of Bismarck, and I guess he came out in a wheelchair and played the entire night in a wheelchair. And this is how he started. This is how he started his show. Was he comes out, yeah, guys, I'm gonna say words like fuck tonight, and if you don't like it, you can leave. But but yeah, that was my trivia class. I was curious. I bet you probably didn't even know that Tennessee Whiskey wasn't Chris Stapleton's.
No, I didn't. Kind of just like how about a year ago I figured out that "Cover Me Up" wasn't Morgan Wallen's song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I about a year ago I figured out he covered that, and I'm not a music snob, where I'm like, oh, if he didn't write that song, I'm going to think of him differently. Um, but no, I did not know that. I thought Tennessee Whiskey was Chris's song.
Nope. But I got back in the play calling booth over the weekend. I'm actually doing two tonight on the consolidated channel. I did DSU softball on Friday and Saturday, and then I'll be doing DHS softball tonight, or the doubleheader at 4:30. So I'll be it was good to get back. I was definitely a little rusty. I forgot that how difficult it is trying to memorize all the names of people, and always having to look at a sheet and then trying to see, and by that time it was already moved over to first, and so trying to get that, I think by the end it finally slowed down for me to where I was familiar enough saying their names and talking. But the other part of it too was I printed off sheets, so I had like some stats to kind of look at of both teams. And me not thinking about it, I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. And then like first at bat, I go and I look, oh, this is really small. I don't know how I'm going to read this because my eyes are not what they used to be. And I probably should be wearing glasses a lot more often than I do. I just don't because I don't like wearing them, which then they also say I should get contacts, but I don't know how much I like putting stuff in my eyes. So, I can still see fine, but in a pinch when you're in a hurry, everything goes a little bit faster. But
Correct.
I was told I sounded good. I listened to a little bit of one of the games from Friday night last night. It was on a replay, so I listened to that and I was like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it was room for
It's
improvement. So the more I do it,
it's never as bad as you think it is.
no. So that was yeah, I'm excited to be doing. I wish I could do it a little more frequently, but could just take what I can get and do the best I can at it for what I got, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that leads to more opportunities. But before we wrap up the show here, Grant, we got one more opportunity to make this an exceptional podcast. So, curveball of the week here. I have it this week since winners only. It was Ethan's turn, but never won anything. Loser. I'm taking the curveball here. So we both enjoy our history, but what is a part of history that you would like to dive deeper into more, that want something that you haven't looked into a whole lot, but something that you want to learn more about and kind of really learn the intricacies of a certain part of American history, or I guess any type of history for that matter?
Interesting. Um, you know, it's it's kind of crazy. Nobody, wartime does no favors to anybody. But the one kind of history about wartime and just stuff that really shapes the world is, truly what's going on in the Middle East, Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq, such like that. Like when Russia invaded, was it Afghanistan in the 80s, and they got
Yep.
absolutely just their doors blown off of them because they were trying to get the oil there. That's something I wish I had more. If I could research or just maybe take a class or two on, that would be fun. Just fun to
There's a
learn
movie
about
about
that.
it, Grant. There's a movie about it.
There is.
Rambo 3.
That's right.
I think
And
is it Rambo 3? It is, yeah.
it is Rambo 3, yes. But it's crazy to think like, the big bad wolf in the West, with this big Russian army invading some small third world country, and they can't defeat them. And then also just all the uneasiness and all the the small wars that have been going on in that part of the world, for the last 40 years, with different religious groups, different countries, how one country can't stand another one, one country's helping pay for another malicious group in another country right there. That would just be very fascinating to see. And then also just kind of another, I'll give you another question here, is kind of that time of, that Somali civil war that Black Hawk Down is based out of.
Okay.
Why, one person like that would want to shut off the food and, supplies to his country just to be in power. That would be just very fascinating, because even now today, that poor country is still feeling effects from that from 25 to 30 years ago. So I just kind of those times, part of the world that nobody wants to talk about, because unfortunately there is not a whole lot going on there besides natural gas and oil, but it's very fascinating times because there's so much going on there.
Yeah. That was one I did not expect. For me, I think I would want to go right now there, like I've said, there's a documentary about Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
And I would partially say that, but I would really like to learn more about World War II, just to kind of understand like where how the war started. Because World War I, it was when Archduke Franz Ferdinand was shot.
Mm-hmm.
And then World War II, of how Hitler, like I'd really like to learn about Hitler's rise to where he became the president of Germany, or dictator of Germany. Yeah, dictator of Germany. And I think that's like just fascinating to me. Or at some point want to go see Pearl Harbor, things like that. I think World War II, and I think what sparked my interest in it was the Shane Gillis, his stand up, when he talked about how he's a bit of a history buff. I've really been digging myself into World War II, which I understand is a sign of early onset Republican. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. And so I think that's something that maybe on my list of things. I have a whole stack of books on my living room table that I need to start reading. I started getting back into my Lewis and Clark book, but I got to finish that before I start reading again.
On that, Dylan, another one that would be very fascinating is to see kind of the rise in Russia becoming, a dictatorship. I know that right now Vladimir Putin, he'll call it a republic, but they were part of the Allies in World War II. And then when Germany and Italy were defeated, all of a sudden they just do a 180 and quick and want to become a communist country and want to try to rule the European economy and become the U.S.'s number one enemy in the world. They just learn about the rise of that, where, like I said, they just did such a quick 180. What happened?
If you have time, go watch Tucker Carlson's video or interview with Vladimir Putin, because Putin actually kind of talks about everything of like the way Russia got to the way it is now.
Interesting.
So it's like a 2-hour interview, but that they talk about and kind of discuss the rise there as far as that. But that concludes the winner's episode of the Three Guys Talking Ball podcast. We'll have the segments of the show out on Friday. Make sure you go subscribe to our YouTube channel and Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, 3GTV podcast. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back next week. We'll be recapping the Masters, and it'll be draft season will be right around the corner there. So stay tuned. We got some very exciting things coming down the pipe. So stay tuned, and we'll be letting you know as they come along.